Welcome back to My Conscious Dad on your hometown station, AM 1220, KHTS. If you're just joining us today, we are talking about the fear of confrontation. So before we left on the break, we were kind of talking a little bit about parents confronting kids, or I guess we actually decided that we were going to use the word address. So parents addressing their kids and kids addressing their parents.
Yeah, we talked about the possibility of, instead of using the word confrontation as the thing that you want to talk about, you're already creating the illusion that the conversation's already going to be a pushback. You're already going to confront somebody and they're going to get, tagged, upset, mad, and then angry and then come back at you. That's the scenario of confrontation. Rather than, my intention when I get there is to address an issue, talk about it, point some things out, and then find a solution for both of us on both ends to be able to have the issue be addressed with a positive result. So if just starting off, if you already change that word, change your intention when you get there. From my experience, when I address issues with people, I don't see confrontation. Out of maybe 50 interactions, I'll have one person that won't like what I'm saying, but it's still not a confrontation. And the reason why is because when they get upset or they get mad and they throw it back at me, I don't come back. I don't take it personal, and I don't come back being tagged or elevating my anger to another level. I just see it as that it's their stuff that's coming up for them, and I just create a safe space for them to be able to vent it or be the outlet. A lot of times it appears that I'm not caring, or because I don't come back and engage with them, it looks like I don't care, or it looks like I'm cold or callous. I'm just not taking it personal. I'm letting it's their stuff. If we're having a conversation and you're all riled up, you're the one that's the meaning maker to that. You're the one that's deciding you don't like it or it doesn't fit in or whatever, and it's your issue, not mine. So I just decide I'm not going to play the part of getting into a confrontation. You can't get into a fight with somebody if the other person doesn't want to fight back with you. Correct? Right. So when you're getting into a heated argument and there's a confrontation, there's only a confrontation because you're playing a part in it. So if I look at it like it's a ball and I come at you and I'm like, look what you did. I can't believe you did this. And then you're holding the ball up and I throw it at you. If I catch the ball and then go, yeah, but you told me to do this. And then I throw it back at you. And then before you know it, we're throwing this ball back and forth. We're both playing the game. We're both playing this game called confrontation or argument or whatever. But if I'm upset and I come at you and I throw the ball at you and you just catch it and set it down and say, well, I can see that's how you see it, but that wasn't my intention. And then if I want to have a discussion with you about it, I'm not getting tagged, I'm not resisting it, I'm not taking it personal, and I'm not coming back at you to defend myself. So what I'm doing is I'm really just letting their stuff, their energy just fall into like this black hole. And what you'll notice is that somebody can't be in a confrontation by themselves.
Right.
Someone can't engage in an argument if you're the only one arguing. At a certain point, that energy just dies out.
Mm-hmm. I kind of want to address how you said that sometimes when you're being neutral, it almost seems like you don't care. I have that.
It gets a lot of people mad sometimes. It gets them more mad.
I have that same experience where I practice being neutral. We talk about it being an art form, and it's very difficult, especially in a confrontation or argument. However, I express myself in a neutral manner, and I sometimes just feel, like you said, it gets them more angry or it gets them more confrontational or more riled up. But after a while, that energy just goes away. It can't just exist on its own.
Yeah, that's because of the positive, I'm not good at algebra, but there's like a negative times a negative equals a positive, all that kind of stuff. So if you're coming to me and you've got all this negative, then what I'm doing is I'm just allowing myself to be neutral. So you're negative at a level 9, slowly, because it doesn't have a bounce back, I'm not throwing it back at you. The 9 can only stay a 9 for a while until it just goes to an 8, to a 7, to a 5, to a 3, to a 2, until we get it to a 1. So as long as I stay neutral, that 9 can't stay 9. But if you're negative and then I'm also being negative, all we're doing is we just keep going back and forth, back and forth, back and forth. We just keep tossing the ball back and forth. So we both keep it a 9. So the energy is really thick, really heavy. We're arguing, then a lot of anger, resentment, and that emotion just keeps escalating because all we're doing is we're both serving it back. We're both powerful beings. And so what you focus on and what your intention is, you actually create more of it. So imagine you at 100% just like wanting to give it to me, and I want to defend myself, and I want to give it back to you. All we do is we just escalate the confrontation to a whole nother level. But it just takes one of you just to be neutral and let their energy fall into the abyss, just go into the black hole. And what happens is the 9 goes to an 8 to a 7, and just slowly starts to go down because you're not getting it back.
I'm actually really glad you said that, because I'm now realizing I believe that I feed energy, my own energy, and I create all kinds of this and that. I never realized that by arguing and fighting back or being confrontational as well, that I'm feeding their energy.
Totally.
I don't know why, but I just always assumed that I was feeding only my own energy, that I could not contribute to anybody else's energy.
No way. If I'm riled up and I'm coming at you, and then you go, oh yeah, and then you bring yours, you're feeding me, you're making me a bigger monster. And then until you realize that you're so powerful based on what your own intention is, you can either de-escalate something by how you're showing up, or you can escalate something based on how you're showing up. Almost like a fire. Right? If I'm a fire and you're throwing wood at me, what's going to happen to my fire?
We're just going to get bigger.
Yeah, I'm going to be an inferno. If I'm a fire and you're throwing air at me, what's going to happen?
I'm not really sure what happens when you throw air at fire.
It doesn't go out.
It doesn't go out?
No, actually, have you ever been... Come on, you've been camping before when the fire's starting to die out and you blowing air in the bottom.
Oh, yeah. You got to just get it back up again.
Yeah. Look, fire needs its elements, right? It needs material, it needs wood, and then it also needs air for it to breathe, to get bigger. But if I'm a fire and I'm an inferno and you don't give me anything, you just stay neutral, what happens is my fire slowly starts to burn out because you're not giving me what I need. I need oxygen and I need fuel, and you're not giving me either. So I just slowly, it runs its course. I die out.
And you know what's also kind of weird that I'm just having this realization is that in times where I've been in fights with people and I go to other people, friends or family, to vent or complain about this person, I'm now realizing that nobody's ever told me, and not that this is anyone's job, and I haven't done it either to other people, but nobody's ever told me, hey, what, don't you think this is kind of your fault too? You guys were both in this argument. It's always been, oh yeah, they're the worst. I can't believe they said that to you. What else happened?
Well, that's a whole nother show where we talk about, when we talk about friends. I did a show a while back called Friends versus Acquaintances. But when you talk about friends, you really have to ask yourself, are my friends more invested in being liked by me? And so when I come sometimes and I'm really upset and like, man, my daughter, man, she's a witch, and or if I said, you know what, if I came to you and go, man, my wife's really upset and she's saying that I'm a jerk and I can't believe she did that, and I'm going off, and my good friends would look at me and they'll say, well, are you being a jerk? And then, at that point, I can look and go, hey, wait a minute, whose side are you on?
Right.
But your good friends will be like, I'm on your side. That's why I'm asking you if you were being a jerk, because you can be a jerk sometimes. Those are my real friends, the ones that aren't attached to being liked by me. They're the ones that have the courage to call me on my stuff sometimes. The friends that I know that they're... Not that they're not friends, but they're not confident and competent and assured enough in themselves. They pat me on the back, and they're the ones that I go, yeah, your wife doesn't know what she's talking about. It's her, and they coddle you. So you got to know which pack of friends you should go to. If you got the powerful friends that will call you on your stuff, they're the ones that you should go to and vent, because they're the ones that can help you get to the next level. But if you go to the pity committee, and we all have them, there's a little group of circle of friends we go to, and they buy our stuff. They buy into all of our shortcomings, and they pat us on the back. All they're doing is feeding our ego, and they're just letting us be right about the way that we see it, rather than having the breakthrough that we really need to have to get to the next level.
Right. And going back a little bit to when you said, if you were complaining to your friend and you said, oh, my wife said I was being a jerk, can you believe she said that? And your friend says, well, were you being a jerk? Even that was not very confrontational. So you can do that to your friends where it's not confrontational because you're asking a question.
Yeah, but some people won't see that. Most people won't ask their friends, well, were you being a jerk? They won't do that because
Right.
of the fear of confrontation. There's a fear of the illusion that if I said that to you, you're going to get mad at me, and then I have to look at myself, and we got to deal with that awkwardness.
Right.
Some people don't like to be awkward. When you call people on stuff, there's this awkward moment where they look at you and they go, man, right? Some of my, I have some clients that sometimes I have to point out some things that they haven't seen, and the ego gets involved, and it gets kind of, it can get deep, it can get hairy. I have clients that will look at me and they're crying or they're upset or they're mad, but that's inside of me. When I get that client to that place, I'm excited because I know there's a breakthrough waiting for them. So I have to compose my facial expressions and kind of just learn how to be neutral and let them go through that process. But the only reason why I'm able to do that is because I'm not attached to you liking me. I love myself. I know who I am. My concern in this lifetime is not to get more friends, because I'm not here to have friends. I'm not here to be liked. I'm here to cause a conscious shift in humanity. And to be honest with you, when you're a leader, you got people that don't like you. You got people that have their own opinions, and they're very opinionated, and they see it one way, and it's the only way they see it. So you're not going to be liked when you're a leader, when you're a change maker. When you're a carrier of the light, you're not always going to get approval. So you got to decide sometimes in your life, what are you committed to? Are you committed to having a million Facebook friends and being liked by everybody? Or do you want a solid, 1,000 or 500 of the ones that really get what you're about, and you're making that kind of a difference? Sometimes you can't have both.
It's actually really funny that you say that, because me and my sister, we always talk about how you lose friends on Facebook from not being liked, or things that you say, I think people identify with a lot and they get defensive. And I'm sure you've had a lot of Facebook confrontations.
Me?
Yeah.
I've had a million of them. Not only that, but I have people, defriending me every day probably. I don't go and look because I don't care. But what I'm trying to say is that when you're operating on a certain frequency, when your energy's at a certain frequency, only certain people around that general area and that frequency can hear you. The rest of them can't hear you, and so what they do is when what you're saying and what you're about doesn't make sense to them, they just come to their own conclusion that whatever, you're crazy, you're talking about, whatever, and then they just, they're turned off by you. It's just the way it is. It's kind of like, I was there too on my way up, learning and growing on myself. There were certain people that I looked at and I was like, I don't know, they kind of rubbed me the wrong way. But it was only because of my own insecurities. I wasn't sure of myself. Now, as I've done the work for 20 some years, now to a certain point, it's like, oh, now that same person that turned me off in my early 20s, now I can see their greatness. I couldn't see it before because I had my own stuff that I was going through. So I guess the question is are you open to the possibility that the way you see it is it's not real? Could it possibly be a lesson for you to learn to get outside of the way you're currently thinking and see the goodness in it? What's the value for me? So
going back a little bit to the fear portion, I'm wondering, because there's a lot of people who are not afraid of confrontation. However, in my experience, that's just it. It's confrontation where they come at you very aggressively, or they don't, in their head, it is confrontation. It's not addressing someone. It's they're looking for a reaction, and they're going to get one, and they're going to just go back and forth.
Yeah, that opens now the possibility of how many people are addicted to confrontation. How many people are turned on by it? And that's a whole nother show. That's like, some people it's like they're itching for confrontation. They want to get in a fight because to them, getting in a confrontation has some type of meaning to them. It symbolizes that, oh, look, I'm looking for opportunities for me to stand up for myself. So when one looks like it's there, it's my opportunity to speak up for myself. I get to now defend myself. I get to be heard. And, that's not healthy either, because, there are times that I don't think any confrontation, how they say, sometimes, getting into wars or battles, that sometimes we need to stand in battle for things. I don't think anybody wins in a battle. Nobody really wins when there's a fight. But there is some winning in you learning how to master your ability and your own state of mind and your emotions, and mastering yourself so that you don't really be a part of the fight, be a part of the confrontation and escalate it. What if you can be the example to the other person as they're getting all riled up? What if you can be the example of, well, they handled it in a different way. I've never seen that before.
Right. And we always say that, well, you always tell me that I'm teaching people how to be in relationships with me. So when I treat them the way that I want to be treated, for instance, by not having a confrontation and not being in an argument, they now learn how to communicate with me or address issues without so much anger or so much, aggressiveness.
Yeah, and you also got to be open that person might not be open to seeing that at that time. You can be the example all you want, and some people are just stubborn and righteous and arrogant, and that's just they're just gonna go to their deathbed seeing it their way only, and that's just the way it is. You can't control other people. You can only be the example because it's who you've decided to be, and learning how to master yourself in those discussions, in those addressing the areas of concern and moving and figuring out if you can find a solution. Not all participants want to find a solution. Some participants just want to argue to be right about the way they see it. They're not proactive. They're not open to a new possibility. And you'll find that a lot of times when you're in a discussion or you're addressing something. Some people, they don't have a concern. They're not at a level where they want to find or seek a solution or common ground. They just want to tell you off and tell you why, and they want to be right about it.
Right, and I think it might take some people a little bit of time too. So if you're trying this new tactic or this new lifestyle choice.
Not a little bit of time, a lot of time. It's going to take a lot of patience, a lot of you asking yourself when you're in those moments, was that my A game? Was I neutral? Was I being compassionate? A lot of compassion comes in it too, because when someone's really heated or really upset and they're coming at you, you got to ask yourself, what does it feel like to be in their shoes?
Right.
And also remember, people are on their own journey. If you're at a certain level, you're at a 5 or 6 in consciousness, someone's at a 3. That you just got to go, wow, I remember when I was there. I remember when I used to lose my temper. I remember when all I was committed to was just being right about the way I saw it. So having a little bit of compassion helps.
I also think that it's going to take either a little bit or a lot of time for the other person that you're, doing this on or being this way with. It's going to take them a little bit of time too. Maybe the first 5, 6, 7 fights or confrontations are like this, where they're awkward and you have to try to not bump heads, and maybe after the 9th fight or confrontation, it's not a fight, it's not a confrontation, it's just a conversation.
Yeah, slowly it'll get to that point. What most people do is they think it's linear, and they think that if I practice the first 3 or 4 times, it's supposed to show me results. And a lot of times it doesn't, so people quit. Now, this doesn't work. Like when The Secret came out, the movie, and everyone was like, I was thinking positive thoughts and it didn't work. Well, you probably quit after the first couple of times, but when you really do it, chronically over and over and over again, you start utilizing this universal law of attraction, and you start creating that. But people give up real easy. That's why people in New Year's will all sign up for the gym, and they'll go like 3 or 4 times, and when they realize they're not creating the results that they want right now. That's what everyone wants. I want results now. And when it doesn't evolve like that, they go, oh, this doesn't work, and then they end up quitting.
Right. Stay tuned for more of My Conscious Dad right here on your hometown station, AM 1220 KHTS. Welcome back to My Conscious Dad on your hometown station, AM 1220 KHTS. If you're just joining us today, we talked about the fear of confrontation. If you missed any of it or you want to hear it again, you can always find our podcast online. We're going to go ahead and go over a quick recap to find out what you missed.
We talked about being in the question and asking yourself, what am I afraid of when it comes to fear of confrontation?
We talked about switching the word confront to address.
We talked about, am I going to ruin the relationships is one of the fears.
We talked about separating ourselves from the issue.
We talked about being in the question of asking yourself, I come from, is it from a positive or a negative perspective?
We talked about being the meaning maker. No one can make us feel a certain way.
We opened the possibility of, can you take responsibility for how you feel or how you communicate.
We discussed eliminating the pushback and resistance.
We open up some possibilities about you learning how to be in a confrontation with your kids.
And we talked about how being neutral doesn't mean that we don't care.
And then we also talked about the possibility that as you're in a confrontation, that you're part of the problem. You're actually tossing the ball back and forth, and you can actually decide to not be a part of it. You can actually put the ball down, be neutral, and then start being proactive, seeking solutions for it.
I actually really like that. I think for me, that I had a little bit of a breakthrough realizing that, like I had said earlier, just putting that energy, giving their fire some energy or wood is my fault, and I have to take responsibility for every confrontation that I'm in. So next week we're going to be talking about the teen training that you have going on this weekend. Do you want to kind of explain what you have planned for that, or what it might look like a little bit?
Absolutely. I'm really excited because we have, this powerful 2-day training coming up this weekend. We actually are full capacity, which is, really exciting for me because the more kids you have, the more powerful it is as a dynamic. But really what this training is about, and we'll talk more about it on the next show, we're talking about the possibility of having your kids learn some emotional intelligence. And there's this theory that when we were born with this mighty spirit that has our truth, our internal truth about how magnificent and powerful we really are. And when you're born, you're actually at your most powerful because you're all the different beings. You're vulnerable, you're loving, you're compassionate, you're sensitive, you're authentic at 100% capacity. But what happens is as you start to have experiences when you're little, you start to create these beliefs about what happened. And then as we grow up, we start to operate and live as though we're those beliefs. I'm not good enough. I'm not smart enough. I can't do that. That's not possible. And as a teenager and or a young adult or a full-grown adult, we have these limitations that we think is real, and they're not. So I get the opportunity to get into a training room in this powerful 2 days and really speak into the greatness of all teenagers and remind them of who they really are. And I can't give away the secret, but something contextually powerful happens in this training. There's a lot of healing that kids get to do. There's a lot of self-acceptance. There's a lot of forgiveness. I don't know of any other training like this. I'm not saying it because it's mine. I'm saying it because this type of technology that I got exposed to at the early age of 23, it changed my life forever. And I've been, from that point forward, been giving this gift away to different communities all across the country, different parts of the world. And I'm really excited to be able to do that in my own community. And that was, I'm grateful that to my wife, your mom, who suggested that I reach out and offer to my own community about 4 or 5 years ago, and then met, Jerry Sarati Goldman, who just fell in love with it, done her own transformational training and said, yes, we get to have this in our community. And now it's at a point where, people are starting to wake up every day, and especially the parents realizing, I want my kid to have this. If not them, I want it too. By the way, I just created a conscious parent training that I'm offering next year in February. Yeah, this is going to be amazing. In February, and we'll talk about it more at the next show.
Can't wait for next week. Thank you so much for joining us today on My Conscious Dad with me, Jasmine Urbina, and my dad, Alex Urbina. We're here every Friday from 1 to 2 p.m. right here on your hometown station, AM 1220 KHTS.